did.
Yeah.
Just did. Cool. Sure. Good.
Y'all can have that.
I mean, you can keep the sound down. Keep the sound down if you want.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah,
if
we don't
see
have any
people-
music or any entrance type stuff, so.
Low budget. Low budget.
They told me not to tell them. Because
I understand very well, actually.
but here, this is for you, so you can see that.
And let's not get our hospital.
No, that's all right because we're like the seventh largest hospital in the country.
So I don't know because I very important class. Very much for it. But she's advocating in Schaumburg for something like she came in and did referendum. It's but yeah, this is the work that she's doing personally, not what she's doing in Calgary. So she's very careful about raising. But yeah, so the contributions are very
What's the letter R again? What is the letter R again? Signing for the letter R. So for restaurant is, or bathroom. Yeah, that's restaurant, but bathroom.
The letter T.
T, okay. I thought there was another one for restroom.
Oh, you did? What? The whole count.
Okay. I couldn't remember what I was asking.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that.
Some of it, I haven't used it, but that's why I had to ask you.
Well, because you don't use it every day like I do.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I was just trying to go through my mind. Okay, what is the alphabet? And I thought A, C.
Oh man, the class that I have to.
These are our online folks. Jim, do we want to do a sound test with the participants?
If they want to all be up here, yes. Well, I'm sorry, our video is going out live right now.
Oh, good. And we've got sounds and we're all good?
We did sound checks before, and it's just a matter of fine tuning it as we get the people up here who are going to be talking.
I gave out pop quizzes for the second YouTube class this week. Oh man, everybody loved the pop quiz. Everybody loved the big challenge.
Oh, I thought you said popcorn. Yeah. Yeah, being challenged and having to figure out, use what you're hearing or what you're being taught about.
Be able to identify what is being said.
Yep. Yep.
What do you think?
I think
Oh, come on now. What do you do?
you're picking up from the Mevo mic. You're getting the Mevo mic.
Oh, okay. This is iPad. The Mevo mic is turns out.
Well, you're getting some mic coming in from somewhere.
We're getting it from this iPad.
Oh, well, let's see. Let's try.
Are we getting anything?
And you're still in McHenry.
I'm in McHenry County.
want to do it? Does somebody else? Would everyone like to take a seat?
That's right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I could go on and on.
I thought I would just get it at the very first part of it, but yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, you're fine. Don't worry about it. This is all a little impromptu here. Okay. Thank you very much for being here tonight. We are switching things up just a little bit. Kevin Morrison is our moderator for the evening, and he's a busy man right now, right before elections, so he'll be here shortly. So in the meantime, we're going to start with Leonetta Rizzi. But before we do that, I just want to let everybody know that we're going to be doing questions at the end. We have note cards. If you have a question, write it down, and we'll be coming through and picking up those questions then for you. And to start then with our evening, we're going to start out the evening by talking, how do you pronounce your name? Leonetta. Leonetta is going to tell us about what a 708 board is, and I will let you go take it from here. Thank you.
I think this is very important, and I'm glad to see that there's a good show here in this room. Again, my name is Leonetta Rizzi, and I'm currently the Executive Director of the McHenry County Mental Health Board. And I'm here to tell you a little bit about Mental Health Board history and just enlighten you for those of you who may not know. The Mental Health Board history started, and its authority starts back with the Community Mental Health Act back in 1963 that John F. Kennedy passed. And John F. Kennedy was a huge proponent. For many people don't know, he had a daughter that was born with, I'm sorry, not a daughter, he had a sister that was born with intellectual developmental disabilities and who also struggled with mental health issues much of her young adult life. So he was very passionate about mental health, intellectual developmental disabilities, and substance use, and just overall, and created the Community Mental Health Act back then. House bill, and also a lot of federal dollars at that time were also created. House Bill 708, then in Illinois, was created in 1963, passed in 1963 as well as a result. And what it did is create the special purpose unit of government, a tax levy, and a board of directors so that it could carry duties and responsibilities under the Community Mental Health Act. It took some time, it was slow moving, but many municipalities and counties back then started creating what we call 708 boards or community mental health boards. For example, in McHenry County, the referendum, by referendum, again, the House Bill 708 is all by referendum. In 1967 is when the referendum passed in McHenry County to create the 708 board and the board of directors. And back then, again, there were a lot of dollars, federal dollars, that were associated beyond the levy dollars that was created. So, for example, the 708 board back at that time created the first psychiatric unit at Woodstock Hospital, also created the first mental health community agency, and a lot of other community health and intellectual developmental disabilities, substance use disorder agencies. And since then, it's grown in McHenry County to the point where we are funding currently over 35 agencies, over 80 programs, and with a tax, with a budget of $10.4 million in McHenry County. Again, we're a county program. I know that there's a lot of municipalities that won't probably have that big of a levy, but either way, there's such a great difference that is made with those dollars in both mental health, intellectual developmental disabilities, and with substance use disorders. I know this forum tonight is specifically about substance use disorders, but the mental health boards, again, are managing all those three entities. And our mission at McHenry County, we've recently changed it, so I'll pass out some of our annual plans, but it's to lead and contract. We tried to make it a little smaller. It's to lead and contract for quality mental health, intellectual developmental disabilities, and substance use disorders for prevention treatment for all people in McHenry County. So again, because of the collaboration that we have in the county in containing mental health, intellectual developmental disabilities, and substance use disorder programming, we've been able to truly have some great outcomes in our area and really invest in quality services. So part of the duties, under the Community Mental Health Act are to, develop a 3-year plan and an annual plan and so forth. But most of the work is done through the consulting that the Mental Health Board does with our funded providers, and also evaluating those programs, making sure that they're quality programs and that there's access, that people who need it are getting the care that they need. So it's invaluable, and I know you're going to be hearing from panelists, much of which have been involved with a mental health board and are able to tell you, the benefits of that, and you'll be also hearing other stories. So I encourage you all to vote yes for the referendum. It makes a difference. It makes an impact in the community, and again, it's an invaluable board to have in your areas. So whether it's on a municipality area or on a county area, it's very important, again, as voters to vote for yes. So I don't know if there's any questions. I know there's going to be some at the end for the panels, but specific to boards. I'm going to pass around a couple of these. If you can just look through them and pass them around. I would wish our budget was a little bigger, that I could have a lot of these available. But I thought I would just come and pass around what we have, and you can kind of take a look at what we fund. Again, proportionately, this is a substance use disorder panel, but when you look at proportionately, when you look at the dollars that we do fund, mental health does receive a lot of those dollars because 1 in 5 people in the United States have a mental illness. The other second one is intellectual developmental disabilities, in which 1 in 10 have a family member that have that. And then third is our substance use disorders. Again, that population, when you look at the services and so forth, isn't as high as the population that we service for mental health and intellectual developmental disabilities. But again, there's great dollars that are going into all 3 of those programs. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that introduction. I think it's important that everybody understands what a community mental health board is and why it's so important and what it can do for our community. So now we're going to, I'm filling in. So what we're going to do, since I don't have everyone's bios, if you would just each introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your organizations and what your what kind of work you do with substance use. Okay. We'll start on the right and go along.
Hi everybody, my name is Mark Regala. I'm actually an insurance agent during the day, but I do a lot of work with the National Alliance for Mental Illness in the evening and on the weekends. I myself, I'm a recovered alcoholic and recovered drug addict. I was introduced to opiates as a result of a neck and back issue. Doctor was prescribing pain pills, and unfortunately I developed a substance use disorder to that medication, and as a result it took me down a path, and as a result of me recovering, I try to get back to the community as much as possible, because I probably would not be here today if it wasn't for somebody that had like a live life experience that was able to share their journey, give me some guidance, and kind of tell me what I needed to do to recover from that terrible illness.
Thank you.
My name is Maggie Burke. I am a mom who lost her son to an overdose and was asked to share my story. So I don't know if you want me to do that now or...
We'll do introductions,
okay,
and then we'll have you share your stories. Thank you.
Awesome. Hi everybody, my name is Justin Wolf. I'm the clinical director at Footprints to Recovery over in Elgin. What got me in the field was that at the age of 20, it was really like the culmination of a lot of my life kind of like unraveling before me. I really kind of had this identity of being an athlete, and I had a sports injury and couldn't play sports anymore. So then I discovered alcohol, and alcohol became a nice comfort for me. So at the age of 20, on October 10th of 2004, my car was involved in a single vehicular accident where I sustained a traumatic brain injury and was in a coma for 3 days, hospital for 3 weeks. If anybody has seen the movie 51st Dates, I was Drew Barrymore. So, I mean, it's a miracle that I'm still here. Just like you'll hear from a lot of other people, there's more reasons why I shouldn't be here than I actually am. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. And at the same time as that was all going on, I had a good buddy of mine who was actually my roommate who was killed in a drug deal gone bad. And we just thought this was an individual that was smoking marijuana. Instead, he was actually going and picking up oxy at that time, which was really big down in Arizona around 2004, 2005. And it was an unsolved crime. So I just saw a lot of people's lives unraveling before me. And I decided to kind of figure out if I could do something about it to help.
Thank you.
Father Jim Swarthout, I'm from the Diocese of Chicago, past director of addiction and behavioral health medicine for Rosecrans and clergy issues. Much of my work is in the field of addiction and behavioral health, 24 years in recovery. I actually consult at treatment centers and behavioral health centers throughout the country. I've been doing this work for a long, way before the gray hair showed up. And I sat on the 708 board in McHenry County for many years also, so I understand the dynamics of the mental health board, how positive it can be, how you can save lives. My brothers and sisters, is about saving lives. And I'm passionate about that, and in my consulting or working with treatment centers near and far. Basically helping them understand an integrated approach as you talk about addiction and behavioral health. We understand it's co-occurring issues. Not just addiction, but it's also mental health. The CDC today, matter of fact, came out with the information talking about how anxiety of people over the age of 30 should be tested for anxiety. The CDC said that today because of anxiety and stress issues in our families and our lives. And so we need to be attentive to that. And so I'm honored to be up here. They asked me the other day if I would come, and I'm like, don't give Father Jim an audience. And, hey, I'm doing okay so far. So thank you for being here and being attentive because people have a right to have joy.
And Laura?
Yeah, well,
I know, how do you follow that?
We know.
I've known him for a long time. Hi, everybody. Laura Fry. I am the executive director of a local nonprofit called Live for Lolly. We've been in the area for 14 years. I am a person in recovery, 40 years from chaotic substance use. And I am also a current mental health patient and will be forever, I'm certain. And that's okay. It's okay to not be okay some days.
That's right.
We work with people that struggle with substance use, the people that love them, and the community at large. What else can I say?
That's good for now.
Okay.
Okay, and now I will introduce Kevin Morrison and let him take it over from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Stay.
Thank you for kicking things off. It's good to see everyone. I think they told me to sit on the stool. You know, I'm a bad moderator this evening. I came in a little late, but I do have a reason. I'm not going to call it an excuse. I got caught behind a ribbon at a ribbon cutting for a new business, and unfortunately, a speaker who didn't want to put down the microphone. So it is an honor to be with all of you this evening. I'm Kevin Morrison. I represent the Northwest Suburbs and the 15th District on the Cook County Board of Commissioners. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about. I've been leading the effort on the county level to expand mental health and behavioral health resources. After 3 years of fighting, I got Cook County to create our very own first Department of Mental and Behavioral Health. Once fully up and running, we have a goal of expanding and filling all the gaps that exist in the mental and behavioral health space countywide. You know, if we can achieve that, we'll be the first county in the nation to do so. But I appreciate the offer to moderate today's panel, and now I'll go back to my talking points. First, I wanted to thank Pastor Aaron Carlson for opening up this beautiful church for our event this evening. Tonight, we are here to learn how community mental health boards work and how they impact, and what impact they could have in regards to substance abuse in our communities. Each of you should have a note card to capture any questions you have to be answered toward the end of the presentation. Our volunteers are wearing name tags. Have we asked volunteers yet to raise their hands? Got one in back. Any other volunteers out there? Awesome, fantastic. We got a few in back as well. Amazing. Now, we've already done an introduction of speakers, so I get to skip that portion. And I'm gonna now pass it over to Leonetta Rizzi.
No, she's gone.
Oh,
She spoke.
very good. Okay, awesome. Then I'm passing it over to Maggie Burke then is next, right?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep,
fantastic.
right here.
Maggie Burke, thank you.
No problem. I suppose you could call me the mother of a statistic, one who lost her son to an overdose 2 years ago. Yet I refuse to have that define myself, my family, or my beautiful Cormac. He was a son, a brother, a cousin, a teammate, a friend, a coach, a student, a nephew, a valued employee and coworker. Not a waking moment goes by that I don't miss him beyond words. Cormac battled nearly a third of his short life, which ended tragically at 22. Take a moment to let that sink in. He fought through depression, anxiety, PTSD, and substance use. I remember when I first discovered drugs in my house, and Cormac and I had a frank talk, and his first disclosure to me was, "I don't want to feel the way I'm feeling, Mom." For so many, his journey is relatable through every peak and valley. He weathered more than any adolescent or young adult should have to. I never knew someone who fell so many times yet had the courage to get up and try again and again and again. My beautiful freckled ginger lad is truly the face of the mental health and substance abuse crisis. I stand here today on his courageous shoulders, or sit, should I say, on the courageous shoulders, and to give his story and all those battling an identity, a voice, but most importantly, to reinforce their worth. You are worthy of the journey to peace and stability. You are worthy of the allocation of precious resources, and you are worthy of our unwavering support and commitment. I am here to knock down the walls of stigma and preconceived notions about what people think about substance use and mental health challenges and what they look like. I always made it a point to tell Cormac, you and your story and your journey have so much power. Believe in yourself and it. You are worthy of this fight. Hang in there, buddy. Mental health and substance use disorders are medically diagnosed. They require daily vigilance and lifelong support. They are managed and not cured. The resilience and tenacity that is required to combat these is to be commended and not judged. There is a fragility to our emotional health. It is important to remember no one is immune to any struggle. There's no shame in needing help, yet there is such a stigma sometimes about seeking that help. Navigating a teen and then a young adult through this storm was challenging at best. There is nothing in the parent handbook to prepare you to step on this journey with your loved one. You are scared, overwhelmed, and frankly beyond your skis before you even start. I cannot tell you how many calls I get now from people who have loved ones who are struggling and they don't even know where to start or who to call. Having a child with dual diagnoses, I cannot stress the importance that mental health and substance use disorders are not always mutually exclusive. They're closely intertwined in a symbiotic balance requiring daily diligence and support. Cormac, like so many, works so hard to keep all these proverbial plates spinning in harmony. Think about what a daunting task that is, sometimes every minute, every hour, every day. I use this imagery, it's like crawling through a field of landmines and then an airstrike starts. The need for increased awareness, tolerance, education, advocacy, and resources is so crucial as we move forward in this fight. Cormac's journey required extensive therapeutic resources, and it was paramount that there be continuity of care and collaboration of services. And this is a daunting task for a family. I would not be here speaking today if it were not for Justin and his professional guidance and unwavering support and dedication to Cormac as well as our family. Being a nurse for 36 years, I was well able to navigate through a daunting medical system of resources and insurance. But what about the people who don't? Where do they go? Where do they start? Who walks with them down this horrific journey, making sure that resources are available to them and their loved ones? Through our Cormac's journey, we had so many peaks and valleys. These stakes are so high. They are life and death. Shame and the burden of public stigma weigh heavily on those who struggle, and Cormac was no different. I remember Cormac being interviewed in his recovery house to kind of change the narrative of how people see recovery, and he sat there and said, I am not a bad person. I am just a normal human being who struggles with something. Empathy and acceptance are free to give, yet they are priceless to those receiving it. I'm forever grateful for all the people that championed for my kid in this fight, and I will never forget their acts of compassion. As Cormac got older and tried to be more independent, navigating unknown waters became very, very challenging. All that came with everyday life at times could be very anxiety-producing to him. He had been through immense therapeutic programming, but it was really everyday life that he struggled with, and all that it brought. It frequently overwhelmed him on a daily basis. The lack of safe, affordable, structured transitional living and recovery homes, as well as Segway programs and community outreach, is staggering. I cannot emphasize it enough. It takes a village to make a difference in this crisis. It takes a village to help build self-worth, reinforce purpose, and over time empower those struggling to break their cycle of shame and failure. Positive connections within a community offer an opportunity for those in recovery to see success, to feel success. This unique bond reinforces an individual's value of self-worth as well as a contributor. I know it did for Cormac. Simply sending people away until they get better does not work. The mentality that we support your cause, but just do it over there, does not work. I am here to remind everyone that this crisis is not over there. It is here, there, and everywhere. It knows no boundaries. It does not discriminate. No community is immune to this. No one gets to say this does not happen here. We need boots on the ground and strong mental health and substance use prevention and follow-up programs and a presence in our communities. We need trained outreach liaisons to help guide people through their journeys. We know better, and it's time we need to do better by wrapping our arms around those who are most vulnerable. I believe change is an evolution of small acts, building on one another. This holds true for so many things, especially the journey of recovery and grassroots advocacy. To quote Mother Teresa, there's nothing more calming in difficult moments than knowing someone's fighting with you. It is my sincere hope that anyone who may be challenged with their emotional health or substance use know that they are not alone. You are loved, valued, and have an army of supporters in your corner. Cormac was my son, but make no mistake, he is everyone's son. Thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Wow, how do we move on from there? Now we're going to start beginning some questions with some of our panelists today, and maybe we'll start from left to right this time around. The first question is, share a little about yourself and why you are involved in this area of work.
I think it all started in 2012 when I discovered that my son was an IV heroin user. He lived in my house and was using for a year, and I had no idea. Why did I have no idea? Because I didn't want to believe it. I was an ER nurse for many years. I knew what it looked like, but I had the deadly mentality of not my son. We've lived in Wakanda for 33 years. Very small town, everybody knows everybody. I couldn't go to the gas station without someone telling me, you know, your son's in trouble. My son would never do that. Well, then came a phone call from the Wakanda police that they had my son, and they pulled him over with 65 bags of heroin. And I went, what? We need you to come down here. Okay. I can walk to the police station from my house. So went down there, and sure enough, my son was in active heroin addiction. So the next day I Googled heroin in the suburbs, and I found our co-founder, Chelsea Laliberte Barnes, and started volunteering. The reason I got involved with Live for Lolly is I was blindsided, and I was someone from the medical community. And I was blindsided. I felt horrible shame. I got stigma in my own community. I had to go outside of Wakanda to go grocery shopping because of how I was treated everywhere I went. So that's why I got involved. I also know your son. And sweet boy. I did not understand the connection until you said his name and I saw his picture and I was like, oh, that's rough, because a lot of the people that we work with don't survive. My son survived, so I cannot give back enough every single day that I'm not in your shoes. Tomorrow I could be, because this is insidious of a disease, and it comes back without warning. My son has been in remission for 8 years, and one thing it has taught me is to live in the moment. Today is a good day. I don't think about tomorrow. So every single day I try to help other people who are struggling. I particularly like to work with other parents and families because I have radically changed from when my son was using. I am considered a nutritionist now. We have a very active safe supply program that we engage people who use drugs and that they have the supplies that they need so that they don't get communicable diseases. And that they have connection. That is one thing that our children, our loved ones are missing, is connection. Because substance use disorder is a disease of isolation, it's a disease of self-shame and societal shame. So people do not reach out for help. So that is my mission and gratitude for my son surviving.
Thank you, thank you. And same question for you.
Again, Father Jim Swarthout. My story goes back a long time before I was ordained, and I had to do a hospital chaplaincy. They put me on a heroin unit, and way back when, been ordained 35 years now, and didn't quite get it, but what I had seen people who came back from NAM who had seen hell on earth and lived to talk about it, and they somehow found recovery and found joy. Ordained, fast forward, in understanding some of my depression, anxiety issues, I realized 24 years ago I had a problem, went 3 different treatments, and finally decided it got me, I didn't get it. Let me explain a little bit. As a clinician, as a therapist, I have an extensive licensure, I have an MSW, I have Certified Advanced Addictions Counseling License and Certified Intervention Professional through the Pennsylvania State Boards through the United States. I often say my father has it, my grandfathers have it, my brothers have it, my uncles have it. I'm grateful my mother and sister don't have it. We're all bald. Okay. I got the addiction and the behavioral health gene, the mental health gene. If there's addiction and behavioral health in your past generations, it's not your fault. I just got the family cold. That's it. The family cold. They go, what are you talking about, the family cold? Well, in my family, somebody got a cold, about a week later, everybody got a cold. Is that right in your houses? Everybody gets a cold. You go to CVS and Walgreens, get over-the-counter medicine. After 2 weeks, if the cold doesn't go away, what do? Go see a doctor and they give you appropriate interventions and therapies. I just got the family cold. My addiction wakes up 10 minutes in the morning before I get up in the morning, goes to bed 10 minutes after I go to bed at night. craving is always sitting there, saying, come and get me, come and get me, come and get me. I'm involved with the 12-step program. Essential to have that fellowship, because if you don't like me, and I'll say it to your face, if you don't like me, get in line. It's 1.5 miles long, and you're at the end of it, because I don't like myself more than you don't like me. Because somebody in recovery struggles with that self-loathing, and you have a right to have joy. I often say that to people all the time. Wherever I go, you have a right to have joy. I have a right to have joy. Get out of my way. I'll walk over you, under you, around you to find that sense of joy. Mental health boards, if I may be as bold, are an integration of bringing a community together for the good of the community, for the best of the community. The 708 board that I was involved with was, in McHenry for many, many years, brought together the different aspects of addiction, behavioral health, understanding, again, not just behavioral health, but understanding co-occurring issues, mental health and addiction. Does addiction come first, or the mental health issues? Don't try to figure it out. You'll never figure it out. The anxiety, the stress. Much of my work also deals with, I work with firemen and first responders, or I would say now, frontliners. You're a frontliner. Not just the first responders, but the teachers. The people, you're all frontliners. And that you deal with the stresses and the traumas and the unknown that is sitting back here that causes stress and the anxieties in our lives nowadays, in our society. We have a right to have joy and to find the appropriate therapies and intervention to find that joy. And I think that's found in fellowship, as well as to find good and excellent clinicians. The 708 board in McHenry County, as well as other 708 boards, had the ability to identify, support, and then help you connect to them. Okay? And that was the gift with the 708 board.
Thank you, thank you. I believe you're next on the line.
Thank you, sir. Hi, everybody. My name is Justin Wolf. Again, clinical director at Footprints Recovery. So, this is a position that I didn't aspire to be when I was growing up, believe it or not. And what I mean by that is that my idea of who I was and who I was to become was to be that of like a professional baseball player. And so, like, that's what, and anybody who plays sports competitively, like, it's like multiple, like, travel AAU teams, like, this was my livelihood. And so when you play and you're caught up in this, your mind becomes very critical, very judgmental. You're doing great and you throw really hard, but guess what? 2 states over, someone's throwing a lot harder than you. You need to keep working. You need to keep grinding. And so my mind was already set up to this place of never being able to rest or relax or even just be okay and be content just with being me, which was something that just kind of carried out throughout my life, is that I had a hard time with feelings, with emotions. I wanted to run from them. And after I got my injury in baseball, and all of a sudden, like, oh my God, who am I going to be now? Because this idea of who I was supposed to be is dead. And I can't let this go. So what I discovered was a great way to turn my mind off and not to feel good, because a lot of times, like, we use or we act out because we want to feel good. No, I wanted to feel less. I didn't like my mind. I didn't like my feelings. I didn't like what was going on. I didn't like myself. So I wanted to escape the problem of being me. And I found a nice avenue through that. And somehow, I was also a pretty slick talker back when I was younger. Because I convinced my parents that the best place to send me was to Arizona State University. Because that's a great place for me to be. And so the car accident that I was referencing earlier, that was really the culmination of me just really not caring. And you kind of get to that spot. And that's where I found myself saying, hey, I live, awesome. If I don't, it's been a good run. It's been a good run. And so that was my big wake-up moment for just being like, hey, you know what? This isn't working. And you would think that would be, as we talk about, people hit bottoms. You gotta hit your bottom. Guess what? We've watched a lot of people die waiting for them to hit bottom. That's a stigma-infused belief that has been echoed throughout generations that, guess what? They just don't want it bad enough. My kids got depression. Should I wait for them to actually be successful in attempting suicide to actually intervene, or do I intervene when they start saying, I don't want to be here? But yet we treat substance use as so different than the other. So as I'm going through this, I'm noticing when I'm back home, drinking by myself, because I just had a traumatic brain injury and it was categorized as severe. So the last thing I need to be doing is putting any other substance, but still I'm going back and I'm drinking and by myself again to escape being me. And at this point, I'm hearing this buddy's going into rehab, or your roommate's killed, your other friends got kicked out of school because they're selling. And I grew up with all these kids in a nice little suburb, in the western suburbs. And I'm just like, we're not bad kids. What's going on with everybody? Why is everybody walking down this same path? And at that point, I'd gone into therapy, which is something I never thought I'd ever see myself in. Like, you want me to talk about feelings and emotions? Oh, here we go. And that was life-changing for me, because that gave me a view and perspective that I didn't have, because my best thinking clearly led to my own self-destruction. And that gift that I received was something like, hey, if I can go give that back to somebody else and be helpful. And that's why I geared a lot of my work towards adolescents and young adults. Because if there's never a more uncomfortable time in your life, it's middle school and high school and transitioning into college. So that's kind of why I do what I do.
Thank you, Joseph. Very good. And Mark?
Oh, yeah, my name is Mark Regallo. So like I said, I'm an addict and alcoholic living in recovery. So just a couple things here. One, the comment was made about how this disease is non-discriminatory, that can happen to anybody, anytime. Just to kind of paint a picture, because I'm 48 years old, this all happened after the age of 40 for me. Up until 40 years old, I was married, had 4 kids. I was an executive for an insurance company working in Chicago. My life was going great. And then, as I said, I developed a neck and back issue, had some conflicting test results between an MRI and an electromyogram. Doctor says you're kind of worst case situation. With the conflicting test results, we don't recommend surgery. Go see this pain management doctor close to where I live. I go see him, he introduces me to prescription opiates, and that really was it. Where it led me to was 2 visits to a psychiatric hospital, 4 visits to a rehab. I lost that job as an executive in the insurance industry, lost my marriage, my relationship with my kids are strained, and all this happened in a very quick time frame. It happened quick. Going through treatment, though, I learned a couple things. You heard dual diagnosis. I was dual diagnosis. I just didn't know there was anything wrong with me. I was diagnosed with PTSD due to some childhood trauma. I didn't even know I can have PTSD. I thought that was military. I'm like, I didn't serve in the military. I didn't know that it could just be trauma that you had growing up, because I was subjected to alcoholism and, in my family as well. And I saw a lot of stuff growing up, with my dad, my uncle, my grandpa, all that stuff. I had anxiety. I actually had panic attacks my whole life. I didn't even know it was a panic attack. I just thought there was something wrong with me. I learned that, going through treatment. And then I too, battled depression, but it was more or less along the lines of situational depression. And honestly, I just didn't know how to cope with life. You hit a certain age and, things start happening. Parents start getting sick. My daughter got sick, stresses on the job, whatever. And in the meantime, you got this prescription bottle that the doctor's prescribing you. So in your mind, you're saying, okay, well, the doctor's prescribing this. And you kind of learn real quick that, yeah, it helps with physical pain, but man, it helps with emotional pain as well, and you start abusing them because your brain's getting rewired. And like I said, in a matter of 5 or 6 years, I lost everything, and then, coming out on the other end, again, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for people that had lived life experiences like myself. Certainly psychiatrists, certainly the therapist helped. But going to support groups, hearing other addicts and alcoholics in recovery, what they did, their journey, paying it forward, the lives that they've saved, tremendous, So I tried to live a life of acceptance. I tried to live a life of transparency. That was hard to do. You got to swallow the ego and, tell people this is me. And, what I noticed is when you start doing that, whether it's sharing something on social media or what have you, people started reaching out, and I come to the realization that, it took me to open up about my disease for people to start opening up to me, and I can't begin to tell you how many people have actually reached out for help, whether it's, through social media, or as I said, I'm actually doing insurance during the day, talking to customers on a daily basis, specifically coming out of COVID. I'm doing an insurance review. They tell me that something happened in their lives, my son died of an overdose, or my son committed suicide. We had my daughter admitted into a psychiatric facility. I mean, these are conversations that are happening every single day. And I've been in the industry 29 years. I've never seen anything like this in my life, you know. And it's not like I'm like advertising, hey, I'm an addict in recovery, alcoholic in recovery. They're bringing it to me sometimes, and then I kind of explain to them a little bit my past and try to get them some guidance, some help, maybe, you know, get them some resources and so forth. So, you know, it's, I feel, you know, it's my way of paying it forward. I feel it's my way of giving back. I'm feel very fortunate to be alive. I've lost a lot of friends along the way as well to addictions, and I'm just glad to be here tonight.
Wow. So what a powerful group of people we have in this room today. And, you know, there's a common theme that has led everyone sitting here into their line of work. What led me to want to push for expanding services, I would have added in my intro, but I feel like now that, you know, I've also struggled with anxiety, depression, and PTSD. I also have ADD, and when I was 18 years old, I lost my brother to a heroin overdose. And so, struggling with my own mental health, dealing with a father who was verbally abusive to me and my sister growing up. You know, it just, being with such strong leaders in this room today is empowering, and I'm glad that you're all giving back to our communities. The next question is to have the room learn a little bit more about the organizations that you lead. So maybe we'll go back over here and discuss a little bit more about what Live for Lowly does.
I kind of said partly. Like I said, we've been around for 14 years. We were founded after the overdose death of Alex Laliberte, a resident of Buffalo Grove. And a month after he died, his mother, father, and sister decided no one else should have to go through this. And they started our foundation. That was in 2009. Since then, we've grown a lot. We operate under 4 pillars: peer support, almost every day of the week except for Fridays. We have peer support meetings. We utilize the Smart Recovery method. If anybody knows about Smart Recovery, it is a nonprofit organization that's been in the recovery field for 25 years. It is evidence-based and uses cognitive behavior therapeutic tools, rational emotive behavior techniques to encourage people to make a choice for a better life. And I've been a Smart Recovery facilitator for 10 years. It really, I thought I was going to change my son by learning a method that I thought he could buy into. And what it did was it changed me. And the tools that I have learned help me manage my mental health. So that's our peer support. We're involved in advocacy. We work very closely at the federal, state, and local level on many different bills involving mental health and substance use disorder. We also do a lot of education. What I'm doing here falls under our education umbrella. And our last pillar, which probably might be my favorite one, is harm reduction. I love working on the ground with people who are actively using and helping them with less risky behaviors. Now, 10 years ago, I would have told myself today that I was nuts. I did not believe in harm reduction. I bought into all of the harm reduction myths that I fight against now. Harm reduction encourages drug use. I drive around with syringes in my trunk every day of the week, and I am never once considered pulling over and using them. What I do know about people who use substances is they will use them regardless because they don't want to be sick. Running, hiding, stuffing. And our bottom line is always keeping someone alive long enough to believe in themselves and recovery. Because without a heartbeat, none of us recover. So if that means that I make a connection with someone by giving them clean and sterile supplies once a week, I lay eyes on them once a week, I engage in a non-judgmental, compassionate way, guess where they go when they want to start thinking about a different path? They go to the people that didn't judge them, that met them where they were at, loved them regardless of what they were doing, and tried to show them a better way, or a different way. I'm not going to say a better way, a different way. So that's our harm reduction umbrella. We also have a mail-out program where people can go to an online form and order naloxone, fentanyl test strips, any other safe supplies, and we ship those out. We do about 40 to 80 packages a week. We serve 4 counties, Suburban Cook, Lake, McHenry, and DuPage. We are one of the beneficiaries of a mental health board grant in McHenry County. We're in our 5th year there. I have never seen an entire county work like this county does because of the mental health board. I've lived in Lake County for 33 years, and I can't tell you how many officials, because I work in this sphere, so I meet up with people a lot, and they're like, what can we do better? And I'm like, you gotta be like McHenry County, because regardless of what sphere you're working in, once a month, we all sit at the same table. Whether you're working with veterans, whether you're working with kids with autism, developmental disabilities, we all sit at the table and work on a better quality of life. And everybody deserves joy, as Father Jimmy says, whether you're using drugs or not. You deserve dignity, respect, compassion, and joy, and that's what we try to do.
Now, excuse me, you weren't on my list of panelists. I don't know if I'm supposed to go to you next.
You can do whatever you want.
Do you have an organization you'd like to discuss, or should I go back to?
I'm with actually multiple organizations, to be honest with you. Certainly working with Ascension, certainly with Rosecrance, different treatment centers, and doing consulting, here, where much of my work has been over the years doing national conferences. I work a lot with bishops, interdenominationally, that may call me. I work with fire departments, first responders, frontliners. They will call a little bit of the priest who thinks out of the box a little bit, because people have a right to have too. I have an extensive clinical background in addiction and behavioral health medicine. And in many ways, the bishop has let me go out to integrate and align and support joyful life. And I have what they call an extension of ministry, so that I can go out there and do that interdenominationally, as well as work with different treatment centers. Again, our role is to, and I'm so thrilled to hear that 708 board still does a little bit what we did way back when I was on the 708 board, that we brought everybody at the table, and really that was the glue that kept the community together. Doesn't mean that there weren't always arguments, because I've been at the table when there are arguments, but that's what families do, right? And so what we were able to do is to promote better health amongst the hospitals. That's an important thing too. The hospital's going to want to have a 708 board, because what they do is that then we can help deal with prevention before the need of intervention. Hospitals are an essential support aspect for 708 boards. I believe that deeply, because when you go to a hospital and you have to do an intervention, or if there's something going on in the emergency room, you know how much money that costs. So our role is to lift the bottom, as we were talking about. Our role is not to find the bottom, but to lift the bottom up, so that people can find a sense of joy and recovery at different spots of life. It's like I said, it wasn't my fault it was the genetic inheritance, but when I work with firemen and first responders or frontliners, they're constantly dealing with traumas that are causing their need to use, to escape from that, not feeling comfortable in your skin. And then our role is to try to align, get smart recovery, 12-step work, recovery homes, all that work together really brings a community to joy. I've worked at treatment centers all over the country, and informing, educating, and working with professionals, executive directors. I'm going to be here. And as my father says, I'm educated way beyond my intelligence. My 93-year-old father. Yes, Jimmy, is getting another degree, so it's just a joy to hopefully enhance the ability to learn and to have hope in life.
Very good. And Justin, please carry on and tell us about your organization, Footprints to Recovery.
Awesome, thank you. So Footprints Recovery, it's a pretty new organization out in Elgin. It's been there a little bit over a year, and it's part of a bigger organization known as Alia Health, which has 13 different facilities throughout the country. And I think what really drew me, because I'm still under my first year. It'll be my first year in November 1st, to be the exact date. Not like I can make anniversaries in my head come up real quick, but and the one thing that really drew me there is the fact that you see an organization that's really committed to change and just really backing up what they talk about. And I've worked in the behavioral health field for about 13, 14 years, and I was working in an outpatient therapist role where I would refer people out to residential treatment because this level of care wasn't working. Outpatient wasn't working, we're not seeing the changes. The home environment's like working against individuals, so we got to get them out of their home environment so they can focus on themselves and really address those things that are driving the behavior, right? And so what I tended to notice, like there's a huge drop-off. Not everybody that we sent out would return. And it's not like, oh, we got to get money for our organization. No, like people, there was a breakdown in service connection is what was occurring. Is that people would go to residential and then transitioning between these levels of care, there's a breakdown and they stopped receiving services. And they're like, you know what, I did 30 days, I'm good, I got this, I learned all I need to know. And then it's a setup, right? People's ego kicks in, I go back to what I know best, what I know best led me there, so I might need to do something different. And that's what I really love about Footprints to Recovery is that we have all levels of care under one roof. And there's this giant building that they took over that has residential and detox on the first floor, and then upstairs, because again, not a lot of people's recovery happens in their home environment. And I think as a culture, as a world, we're starting to understand like there's a lot of power in geographical switch. And it was a stigma belief that hey, people are running from their problems when they make a geographical change. Hell, if my home had traumatic memories associated with it, and the people in my environment were set up to work against me, why would I want to go back there and believe that things are going to be different this time? Before I worked with the other place too, I worked with adolescents that were from the inner city that were 99% were gang affiliated and were from the south and west side of Chicago. And we had a recovery home associated there. And Praxis. Praxis? Yeah. And so they would stay. They would stay in that recovery home because, you know what, I feel safe, I feel secure, people care about me, they know my name, meals are predictable, while at the same time they're receiving phone calls that guess what, my friend got shot. And they're not making it out. And I caveat that with, that's why I like, and I really love the organization I work for, is the fact that we have the recovery home where people have the ability to stay for 6 months, a year, and continue to receive care. And that care, when we talk about like PHP, I'm throwing jargon out there right now, so just bear with me. After that, you have traditional outpatient, you see your therapist 1 time a week. That's a huge drop-off from going to group 3 days a week, or 5 days a week for 3 hours a day, to then seeing your individual counselor for one hour a week, and believing that that is going to be enough of the structure to support you. Well, that's what this recovery home provides that we have. We have CADCs, we have recovery coaches, and they're supervised 24 hours a day. And the people have the opportunity to then participate in multiple groups throughout the week as well, because people need that additional support. And I believe one of the biggest things that I think we've done that I am really proud of, because I always, when I work in a place, I want to work for an organization, I said I would send a family member to. because I want to be able to put my name behind what we do and the services we provide. And this idea of, you know, addiction, mental health, that barrier is created by stigma. Because when we look at addiction and we look at depression, what it does to the brain, it changes brain chemistry. They both change brain chemistry, the way the brain responds, the way neurotransmitters are picked up. Addiction changes it, depression changes it. Yet we look at them solely differently and blame the individual for one and offer pity and support to the other. And I think that's when we're kind of looking at this. We have a dual diagnosis, co-occurring presentation where we are all evidence-based because we want to be able to stand behind what we deliver and how we deliver it. And as we know, trauma goes hand in hand with addiction. We have trained EMDR therapists that are there so that if I were to refer somebody who I know had a significant traumatic experience, I know that person is going to get the care and support that they need to address, treat, and resolve that trauma by the time that they're done in that treatment center. And if it's not resolved, they're sure as heck going to have a good foundation underneath them that lets them know how to manage those memories, those feelings, those sensations when they come up. And so that's about the work that we're currently doing. Oh, we also, I should mention, this is really important. We have a Valor program, and our Valor program is for our veterans. And it is a veteran program that is also run by veterans. Our two gentlemen that run the program are ex-Marines. And I don't know if you ever become an ex-Marine, but they're Marines who are also licensed clinicians and have their CADCs. So they are running and operating that program.
Wow. And Mark, last but not least, would you like to tell us a
so-
little bit about NAMI?
Sure. So again, the organization that I represent is NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness. And I guess I'll go back to how I was introduced to them because they actually played a very critical role in me getting sober and living a life of recovery. So it was actually my last hospital visit. We were going to group, and they said, you're going to hear a presentation from this gentleman that represents a nonprofit organization called NAMI. I'd never heard of NAMI before, okay? And again, I had 4 treatments to rehab. It's my second visit to a psychiatric facility. Never heard of him. Gentleman comes in, he starts sharing his story, his lived life experience, and he was a recovered heroin addict. And I'm an opiate addict. And I mean, honestly, pain medication is just synthetic heroin. It's being prescribed by a doctor, you know. And I listened to this gentleman's story of his journey and how he recovered. And it was very inspirational to me. And I think a lot of times when you're in that situation and you're in the depths of addiction, a lot of times you just need hope. And sometimes that hope is actually coming from somebody else's story that has been in your shoes, that has walked in those shoes, and now has gotten on the other side. So I remember talking to him after his presentation. He gave me a brochure and says, you got to check this organization out once you leave the hospital. And I started getting involved in them. And the services that they provided played a very critical role in me living a life of recovery. And now I'm actually doing a lot of volunteer work for them as well. You know, they have opportunities you know, for us for either families or individuals to work with a peer counselor, to talk about goals, talk about coping skills, talking about basically how to live life with your mental health condition and how to deal with your addiction or alcoholism and how to live a sober life. They have, you know, a connection support group, which is more focused on the mental health side. You know, they got family support groups for family members that are dealing with a loved one that is dealing with either mental health or addiction or alcoholism or both. And they got a variety of support groups, you know, for parents that have children that are dealing with it. They got support groups for spouses or partners that might have a partner or a husband or wife or whatever that's dealing with some type of addiction or mental health and how to handle certain situations and so forth. They got the dual diagnosis group, you know, with individuals that are dealing with mental health along with the alcohol and substance side. I actually help facilitate that group right now along with Justin. So the services that they offer are really of abundance, and we still do go into the psychiatric hospitals. We still go into the detox centers and talk to the patients while they're hospitalized, try to share our stories, be that beacon of hope, be that inspiration, so that way when they come out, they can get involved and start living a life of recovery. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Mark. Now I'm going to switch it up, and I'm going to Justin this time. We're coming to you next, don't worry. All right, so, and I'm gonna stand because this stool is actually killing my back. I apologize. So, what are you seeing? Are there any trends in terms of substance abuse in the area? And what areas of help are needed and what type of help?
Gotcha. So in terms of trends, I mean, I think I'm going to speak, I'm sure it's going to be echoed by everybody sitting on these couches when we talk about fentanyl and the way it's impacting our communities and the way that it is infiltrating all kinds of different substances and the way it's being masked, the way it's being presented, the way it's being cut and introduced. I think that goes without, I mean, it's in every headline. And then I would just want to give, Mark does a fantastic YouTube channel where he's talking about the trends. And he just recently, I watched his YouTube video, and he just recently talked about fentanyl that's getting pressed to look like Skittles coming in this Halloween. And so, and you're seeing the way that they're pressing it, it's looking like candy. And that's why we're seeing 7 and 10-year-olds overdosing. And we're talking about overdosing, no, and Mark did a fantastic job in his presentation. It's poisoning, right? Like, because people are taking this unintentionally. They don't know what they're ingesting. They don't know what they're taking. And recently, there's enough fentanyl seized at our border with enough fentanyl to kill the entire population of the United States of America because it's 2 micrograms is a fatal dose. And there was 1 ton of fentanyl that was seized. Enough to kill 453 million individuals in a country that has 332. I mean, that's just unreal. I think the other big thing that we're going to talk about is obviously COVID and the pandemic changed everything. We're looking at now, marijuana and alcohol gets delivered to your house. So now you have a new introduction of individuals using that didn't have a problem with substances or a problematic relationship with substances that now are struggling with cannabis use, they're struggling with alcohol use. Their mental health at the same time is also skyrocketing. So I think the idea that has been perpetuated throughout the field for many years as it's somebody who is presenting with a primary substance use problem and minimal mental health, no, you're having individuals present very differently. Now you're seeing individuals with a severe substance use disorder and also have severe mental health diagnoses. When we're looking at schizoaffective disorder or major depressive disorder, severe, people who are using and contemplating, do I stay or do I go on a daily basis? And these relationships get so attached, so strong because of how much stronger these substances are than they've ever been. And I think there's a lot of great marketing that's going on that's really perpetuating substances. I'll just say, let's just talk about cannabis for a second. Legal does not equal safe. And somehow it gets marketed as this is legal, so it must be okay. If we want to talk about the #1 drug that's been destroying families for decades at this point, has been legal, it's alcohol. And we're seeing these problems just skyrocket throughout our communities, many new users beginning to use, people that didn't battle or have problems with it, struggling, as well as people with mental health, anxiety being at levels that people never fathomed it would be at. So I think we are having to address both simultaneously, and a lot of times what we're hearing is people are very much willing to acknowledge their mood, what they're experiencing emotionally, and then secondly, look at the use and the role that that's playing there. And I think that's where we can't really differentiate between one or the other. We are looking at a behavioral mental health problem when we're looking at the disease of what addiction is and mood disorder. So,
I think you raised many great points there, but just for all of you out there, we got great organizations right over here who can give out free test strips, and it has been seen off the street marijuana sales have been laced with fentanyl as well. So that is important to keep in mind. So just throwing that out there. We're now going to go back to Live for Molly over here. Are you seeing any trends in terms of substance abuse, and what holes exist that need to be filled? You could touch maybe a little bit on that.
Fentanyl. We test people's drugs for them, and I personally have tested and found fentanyl in every street drug I've tested. You cannot find heroin anymore. It just doesn't exist. I have tested street Percocet right here in Palatine. I had a friend ask me to come test his drugs before he sold them. Okay, went over to his house, tested them, fentanyl. Luckily, he gave them to me because they were 2 baggies with 200 pills each in the baggies. And he said, I had a bad feeling about this. I don't want them. Will you take them? So here I am driving home with 100 fake Percocets in my trunk. Called my police chief on the way and said, you got my right? I got 400 Percocet pills. Luckily, I work with all the police departments. But yeah, we're seeing fentanyl in everything. My son took a sheet of blotter acid down to Chicago Recovery Alliance to be tested on a mass spectrometer. Now, anybody who has done hallucinogens, what you are looking for doing them has nothing to do with fentanyl. What a shock. There was no hallucinogens on this sheet of blotter. It was all fentanyl. Xanax, MDMA, ecstasy. And I know that this isn't always a popular opinion, but as a true harm reductionist, I believe that we have bodily autonomy and that we should be able to put into our bodies what we choose to put into our bodies and not have to worry about being poisoned. That and social media. The fastest growing, we got an email from the CDC about a month ago, the fastest growing demographic of overdose deaths is between 14 and 19. First time in history that is the leading number of deaths. And why is that? Social media. People can go on Snapchat and order one pill and it's killing them. I'm sorry, children, cover your ears. Snapchat, Instagram, friends share, right? All their lives we tell our kids, share, and they're sharing. And they don't know what it is. And then they're all getting sick. So we're talking about gaps. That's the next thing. I run into this with families who think that this is like a broken arm. You send someone away for 30 days, they get cured, and then they come home and everything's good. And there's no follow-up, or there's very little follow-up, or the family is not engaged in recovery. It's not just the individual that needs to be in recovery, it's everyone around that individual. And if that doesn't work, it's like, I don't remember which one of you gentlemen said that, but we cannot put someone somewhere in a controlled situation for 30 days, heal them, cure them, and then put them right back into a bad situation. That doesn't mean that we're bad parents. It just means that we don't know enough, and knowledge is power. So we need more families educated. We need more recovery coaches that can do one-on-one work with people in recovery. I am a certified recovery coach. And we need, especially, people who use substances oftentimes are involved with the criminal justice system. It's just how it works. We can't find people jobs because they have a record. Okay? And these are typically nonviolent, drug-related offenses. This is the only disease that we criminalize people for having. So how is someone supposed to live a successful life in recovery when they can't find housing because they have a record? They can't find a job because they have a record. Their family doesn't want them because they're a criminal. How are these people supposed to find joy and successfully live recovery? To work for Live for Lolly, we feel that's an asset. Ooh, you've been in prison? That's awesome. I want you. Oh, you used drugs for 25 years? Beautiful. I want you. And they are my best workers, because people who have been beaten down and stigmatized. When you give them a chance, they blossom. So we need more jobs, we need more housing, we need more recovery services.
And healthcare. More affordable and accessible healthcare.
Oh my gosh.
That's so spot on, Laura.
Oh,
And just for everyone out there, like, never flush your prescription drugs.
Oh, thank
Don't
you.
throw them in the trash can. There are, I think, 19 locations in my county board district alone where you could drop off prescription drugs. It's critical to keep our watershed away from those medications. And also, like, you know, there are a lot of organizations that give out test strips, and, you know, I know we don't want to be using, but if you're, it is good to have that knowledge to recommend it to people around you, because like Laura said, any drug on the list, be it your marijuana, your cocaine, there are people overdosing. One of my staffers knew someone close to him from back home who bought cocaine that was laced with fentanyl and overdosed and died. It's just mind-blowing. Okay, and we're done with our panelist questions. We are now going to go on to our incredible guest today and see some of the questions you have. Are you going to hand them out to me?
If I can read it to you and you repeat it. Is that
Awesome. That works. You tell me what to do.
Okay. So the question specifically is for Laura Fry. I know that Liberal Alley is actually, their offices in Arlington Heights, yet you work in a much broader area. So you work in both areas that have a 708 board and that don't. Can you tell us how a 708 board, a community mental health board, has been able to help, what it's done?
how much time you got?
Well, like 2 minutes.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so in McHenry County, we are on 5 years of a grant that is $175,000 a year. We have 3 outreach people in McHenry County, and it's a good contrast because I've lived in Lake County for so long, so I see what we don't have in Lake County that I do have in McHenry County because of a 708 board. What I see is a huge network where on any given day or time, if I have an issue that comes in, I know who to call in McHenry County for the answer. In Lake County, it's like, blah, and I've lived here forever. So that's one of the things. One of the barriers that we see out here in the suburbs is transportation. People can't get to doctor's appointments, they can't get to their methadone clinic, they can't get to meetings. Well, our 708 board has a transportation grant that we get so that we can send people to their appointments. Those are the biggest things.
Thank you. So a question about your facility in particular is footprints of Medicare, Medicaid facility, and where is your location?
So it is 411 West River Road. It is located right next to Judson College, and right next to us is another college or university, but I cannot recall the name. So it's right off the 90, which is convenient for me coming from Naperville. So we are currently not a Medicaid or Medicare facility, yet we are a network with major insurances.
And I might add, they give a lot of scholarships.
That was going to be the
because- Thank you. Were you
caveat.
going to say that?
So
I'm
like,
sorry.
no, it's fine, because I think that's the biggest thing that I love about where I'm at, is the fact that if people don't have the financial services to pay for, whether it's housing or care, and we see somebody who's actively working a program and wanting and searching, we have financed people's entire stays. To and we're not talking about just like, hey, we're gonna give you 30 days and then out the door you go. Like, the beautiful thing is we have case managers that are just grinding and working really hard to ensure, like, I mentioned methadone. Like, not a lot of recovery homes will take individuals on methadone. Our recovery home does. And we'll also help find, like, fantastic, I'll give her a shout, Aggie worked incredibly hard to find a recovery home that would work with this individual on a pretty high dose of methadone so that we could help her have a successful transition.
Do you have a wait list for your programs? The question for all the service providers.
So I think that's been one of the biggest things. I also am an individual, like, private practice therapist, so like I see the pain that's kind of going on right now and how hard it is to find spots for everybody. Our facility does not have a wait list. We want to help people get care immediately. When somebody, we know, like, when someone's looking for care and they're like, hey, I need help and I need help right now, that can pass incredibly quickly if that care is not received in that moment. And it's just like, oh, you gave me 6 hours to think about it? You know, that crisis is past, I'm good, nothing to worry about here. And so we want to help expedite that process. And if our facility is, let's say, full, we have other facilities under our umbrella that we will help with transportation in terms of getting that individual into treatment. And I think that's been one of the awesome things is that when we're looking for help for individuals who are going into detox and they can't drive a car, we will have one of our drivers transport and pick them up and get them to the facility so that they can be medically detoxed.
Anything to add?
Can we have you come closer to the microphone so they can hear you?
Yes.
Online, I mean.
Totally forgot to answer the second part of your
Actually,
question.
I'm going to do this one because you can just read this as is.
Oh.
There we go.
So as long as you stand behind there, they will see.
All right. How will the Mental Health Board act as an advocate for someone looking for resources and treatment options? Anyone want to take a stab at that one?
I mean, in my mind, when we're talking about this, we're talking about the mental health crisis that America's experiencing and the addiction crisis that we're all kind of in the thralls of. This isn't an old people's disease. We're talking about a young person's disease. And we're talking about we need to get ahead of it versus being reactive to it. And that's when I'm kind of like thinking about this, how does this board get really effective and really kind of meet those needs? Getting into the schools. Because you have social workers that have caseloads of 400, 500, 600 kids that they don't really have the time or energy to allocate those resources to really meet and give them the services they need in that school. Or hey, I work with a lot of kids that are school refusal. Because guess what? School's not for me. Having resources that go to the home and say, you know what, we're going to bring treatment and care to you because we're going to meet you where you're at. And we're not saying we're meeting you where you're at and throwing our hands up. We're going to meet you where you're at and hopefully guide you forward on this path to recovery.
The gift of the 708 board is that it has the alliances and the references and the relationships. So you can call a 708 board office, and that 708 board would say, well, can you help us? And you could ask the 708, or a person that answers the phone, that's sort of the intake person, and then they can make that referral. So the beauty of a 708 board is that it brings the community together. And really, in many ways, a lot of people, I know in McHenry or other 708 boards, that there's not the, well, you're going to send them here, or you're going to send them there. The idea is to bring it all together. And so I saw the same thing in Rockford when I was in Rockford. Communities work together for the good of each other. And I found that my experience working in mental health boards in Rockford and 708 board in McHenry, that they'll help advocate and find and give you information straight up front. You know, what treatment center might be best, or you know, who's got Medicaid, Medicare. And I know we talk about the young, but I'm going to tell you, us old people, I can't tell you how much alcohol and drug use is dealt with the elderly because we are alone, are gone. We got to start, and so when somebody asks the question, what do we need? What is the missing piece? The great thing that's going on is you're here talking. You want to know the greatest thing that's happening in the world right now? You're listening and talking. It's not that I buried 14 kids this year. I don't think anybody else around there has done that. 14 kids. Doing one next Saturday. And kids or adults that overdose or have issues, that struggle or isolated. And that to me is an issue. But the greatest gift is you're learning, becoming aware, and networking with each other. That is the best. All right? Instead of all the negativity, it's about, wait a minute, I got an idea. Let's make this happen. You know? Is the glass, people often say, is the glass half full or half empty? Well, as far as I'm concerned, it depends if you're drinking or pouring. Depends upon your attitude, folks. It's all about your attitude. Okay? People have a right, I can go back and say that time and time again. I see people who are in recovery and finding joy, you know, and people with addiction or mental health issues, they don't like it. I don't like it. Can't wait to get, and we are in many ways what we're called wounded healers. In our pain and our suffering, we become the best healers. We're out here telling you, our role is that we got to give it away. Let me give you the message. Let me give you the message. Help somebody else. It's always about giving it away.
Okay. There are a couple questions just about the board itself that I thought I would answer quickly, and then we'll wrap it up for this evening. So there's a question about how much of the budget goes to staff, so I'm just going to give a quick overview. A community mental health board consists of 7 to 9 members. They're all volunteers. They all have to live in the area in which that board is formed. So if is Schaumburg, they'd have to be Schaumburg residents, Wheeling Township residents, etc. It is possible to hire staff. McHenry County actually has paid staff. Most of the community mental health boards don't. So the first thing they have to do is a survey to determine needs, and then based on those needs, they come up with a budget. So it's a little bit hard to answer those questions at this point in time, but there is a process that is followed. There's no real facilities per se. There could be an office, but many times there are not. Most of the time it's a volunteer board, so there's no facility, there's no need for a facility. The funding the money that is raised through the small tax then is given mostly to agencies like these. In fact, in most times, all of it is given to agencies, and with the exception of those that do have staff. And those agencies have to apply for the grants, and they're going to all the programs that we've been talking about. So there's more questions. We're going to try to answer those online because I do like to stick to our time. What do you think?
3 minutes.
Oh, it's 8 o'clock.
I know. Time flies by. But and I think what was just mentioned about the 708 boards are exactly right. And what's important to know is that they're going to be critical in helping fill the gaps that exist. I've met families who have loved ones with schizophrenia who have had to send their loved one to Indiana because Indiana has beds, but we don't have beds here in Illinois. I met a grandmother whose grandson had schizophrenia 4 years ago who was told the only place that the option, because there was a 2-year waiting list in Illinois, drop him off at the coast. Her grandson at that moment was getting care in Texas. So there are a lot of gaps that exist, and especially here in Schaumburg and Wheeling Townships. And I'm so happy that there is this movement to fill those gaps. As a close, are we doing any closing remarks? Or
I don't think
we don't have time for that.
these are...
But we have 2 last things to highlight. There is an information table right at the end before you walk out. Please check it out and see what resources are available in the community. And then, have any of you moved recently? Anyone change your address? Are you all registered to vote? We've got an amazing volunteer League of Women Voters in the back helping people register to vote or update their voter registration because we got a critical election November 8th. And then Lori, any last words?
We also have some freebies in the back. If anybody wants a mental health sticker, we have some of those. Feel free to take whatever you'd like. And we have sign-up sheets and if anyone would like a yard sign. And for those of you that are online that would like a yard sign, we would love to have your help. Or if you'd like to help us in our efforts in any other way, we would love to hear from you. And we really thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it.
Live in Schaumburg Township, live in Wheeling Township, take a yard sign.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you. I should have ended it with that. No, you.